Greetings, gnomes and nomads. Feels good to say that again. It has been a very long time since the tragic fall of Spiderslaughter. Took me a while to come to terms with it, honestly, for the finality of the situation to really sink in. But I'm back, as is Gnomoria, though it has changed an awful lot since the last time you will have seen it. But I have been practicing with this latest version, version 0.9. We have moved from alpha to beta. We are only one major, or rather minor version away from release. And that does mean a few things from the way that the game is going to be developed. Instead of weekly patches, they're going to be fortnightly patches, which honestly, it will probably be a little bit better for recording it, because drastic game-changing elements won't happen too often now. Most of the focus of development is going to be on polishing what's there rather than changing the rules of goblin invasions, or changing how frequently mants will attack, or the value of items, or what items invaders will drop. These were little changes in and of themselves, but they did have quite drastic ripple effects that Spiderslaughter felt throughout that particular Let's Play. So hopefully our new fort won't suffer in the same way, with a drastic ramping up of difficulty between one patch and the next. But speaking about a new fort, I think we've got some work to do. My, it has been quite the while since I last stared at this particular screen. It is now version 0.9. We are that close to version 1, and that is both scary and awesome at the same time. So much has changed. I'm not even going to begin to just list the things that have changed, because I would be here for an entire episode just doing that. But there are a few things that I want to draw attention to. Namely, there's one particular bug in this version that I'm going to address, and it has to do with sound effects. There are now sound effects in the game, by the way. Things like chopping down wood, harvesting from fields, and foraging. They all now have different sound effects, but unfortunately some of them have I'm not really sure what it is, but there's like a burst of static at the end of one of them. Unfortunately, it is a known bug, so it will be fixed, but even if you set the audio options down to 0, it'll still play through that. So the only way around that I've found is to completely mute Gnomoria through Windows, and the music that you're listening to right now, I've simply added all of the music files in the audio directory for the game into Winamp, so I'm just playing those on shuffle. However, that does mean that the sort of reactive music isn't going to be there, so when it moves from day to night, it's not going to start playing a specific track. When there's an enemy on the field, it's not going to start playing a specific track. Hopefully, we're not going to see many enemies in this episode. But just to make you aware of that, in case you hear the enemy sound and are wondering, well, why is that there? Now, under gameplay, I've got a few things that are set up. I'm not really going to go over any of these, except for this one. Mostly everything else, I'm fairly certain I covered in Spiderslaughter. But this one, nourishment weight, affects the pathing, much like depth distance scale does, in that it'll affect how far away a gnome sees something, in this case specifically food. Previously, a gnome would always go for the best type of food when he was hungry, regardless of how far away that was from where he currently was. Now, by default this starts at 50, but I've dropped it down to 20 because I really would like my gnomes to prioritize close food over distant food. I mean, sure, if there's a couple of things that are relatively close, go for the best one, because the higher the nourishment, the longer it'll be before they need to take a break to eat again. But, for example, if I've got a guard in a guard post and there's food nearby, I would rather him eat less nourishing food from the nearby stock of food than cart himself all the way over to the kitchen to get the best sandwich in the kingdom, and in the meantime leave the guardhouse completely open. So that's one thing that I just wanted to draw attention to. Now then, I have done a great deal of testing to try and find a setup, primarily of these three sliders, that makes for an interesting land. With Spiderslaughter, we started on a small kingdom for lag concerns, and There's apparently still some discussion about large kingdoms eventually starting to slow down towards the after a few years, so I'm going to stick with standard this time. A lot of people were asking for a larger kingdom, and I would rather a larger kingdom as well, but we're going to go with standard for now, and possibly in some distant future kingdom we'll go to large, but for now this should do. It does give us quite a lot more land to play with than you would have seen in Spiderslaughter. Now, the best settings that I've found for this to make a really interesting start is something like that. Now, Spiderslaughter's terrain was quite fun to play with. You had a big central hill and a lake there, but what I'm looking for now is something a little bit more, not so much difficult to start at, because no matter how difficult something is, you could just level the whole place and make a flat area for yourself, and it really didn't matter. It just would increase the amount of time before you could really get started. But what I want is something that I can work with that is unusually shaped. Now, hopefully, this is going to make quite large and jagged hills. Let's have a quick look at the preview. Now, this is going to just be a little snapshot of roughly what it would make. This is not really going to be anything like the actual map we get. But as you can see, like, we've got valleys going on, and I can only imagine that these are large cliff faces belonging to very large mountainous hills. I think this is going to be quite a fun sort of terrain to play on. And in my tests, they have a couple of them were fantastic, and I was kind of kicking myself thinking, why didn't I start recording before I did this one? But alas, no. Now, randomize names. A few people have suggested that I name the kingdom a specific sort of name or theme, and as attractive as that is to me, there's something about randomized names. It's kind of like a tradition with Dwarf Fortress and now with Gnomoria. I like having these random names. It gives a sort of unpredictable character to the place you've got. I mean, Spiderslaughter, I wouldn't have made up a name like that, and yet I felt that even though we didn't actually find any spiders, we certainly lived up to the slaughter part of the name. So let's throw the random number generator around a bit and see what it comes up with. Breach Casket. That sounds a bit morbid. Land of Burdens. Oh, I wouldn't want to burden my gnomes. The Mud Kingdom. I wouldn't want to have them live in a kingdom called the Mud Kingdom either. Pranked Land, Hairy... No, we'll move on. And, wow, these are all kind of shady names, to be honest. Land of Hills, probably appropriate, but no. The Bastardized Land, no. Let's move on. Dusty Kingdom, no. Land of Adventures, that sounds cool, but I'd prefer something that isn't the something or land of whatever. The Hellish Lava. That's almost good enough to take, actually. Castlegoat. You know what? Yes, okay. I accept, game. We will be founding the kingdom of Castlegoat. Now, it is going to take a minute or so to generate this map. And we're not even done yet. It's been about a minute and I'm only halfway through. My lord, this is taking forever. Almost there. Almost there. Oh, the suspense, it's killing me. What kind of land are we going to get? I hope it's a nice land, full of trees. There are different trees this time as well. I'm not going to spoil the surprise. Some of you have already seen it, who've checked out my live stream. But yes, we've got different fruits as well. Oh, settling liquids. We're close now. This is the last step. I'd probably try counting down, but I really don't know how long it's going to take to settle the liquids. There could be a lot of liquids on the map. And here we are, at last. Oh my lord, that took forever. It was like waiting for Christmas to come. Ah, look at this. Trees, trees everywhere. Oh, only one type of tree though. Where are the trees? Ah, here are the trees that I was talking about. Orange trees. Haha, yes, that's right. We can get some citrus fruits in our diet, along with our apples and our strawberries. There's actually more than that as well, but I will leave that as a bit of a surprise. I'm not sure if we'll be able to keep the surprise until we actually see the stuff, but I'll try. Now then, let's zoom out and actually have a good look at this map. Okay, it's a bit of a tall mountain over there, and looks like a bit of a mountain ridge. Oh, it's not really a mountain, it's more of a hill. It is plenty of water. Oh. Oh. Wow, that's a very big hill. No, actually it's a mountain. Oh my lord, it's actually a really tall mountain. That actually reaches the highest height level that you can have terrain on. That's why it cuts off so suddenly. Things can exist up here, like you can have gnomes and trees and things like that, and build stockpiles, but you can't actually have any terrain, like walls. That's why it just suddenly flattens out. At least that's what I believe to be the case. It's the highest depth level you can get to anyway. But yeah, so we've actually got two really, really tall places. This one's actually fairly smooth. It's not quite as jagged as I was expecting, though. This one does have some nice cliffs on it. And this tiny little spire. I can think of possibilities with these. Maybe not this one, that's quite huge, but that could certainly be hollowed out and have some massive holes in there. But this, maybe if we took the sides down, made it into a bit of a cliff, we could actually fashion a tower out of that. And this one, perhaps, just a little bit. Maybe that would be more of a jail tower. But maybe a dungeon at the bottom. But we've got some water. And where are our gnomes? Ah, here we are. Okay, back to you. Okay. As you can see, not the sort of massive tracts of flat land that we saw in Spiderslaughter, but this place is actually a little bit promising. And it's actually quite close to water. And close to the base of these massive towering mountains. So, yeah, that one's actually really narrow as well. That's going to be quite cool, because you'd have a spiral staircase going up there, and perhaps like rooms. Perhaps wealthy rooms with windows and balconies, so that people can look out. The rich, noble gnomes looking down on the toiling bondsman gnomes working in the fields in the blistering hot sun, whilst the noble gnomes drink sweet orange nectar. I'm not sure. But I'm not sure if that's how Gnomish society works. I'm not sure I would want that to be how Castlegoat's society works. I mean, I have enough of a class system living in Britain. I don't need to impose that on my gnomes, but we'll see how things go. Right, so I think we will be setting up in this little area here. It's got water, and it isn't going to require too much terraforming to have a fair bit of land. Now, farms are incredibly important in this version of the game. Mostly because your yaks will die if they don't get fed. And to get fed, they need a trough. So it means you've got to get up to the point where you can make troughs quite quickly. Thankfully, they're only made with stone, but still it's going to take a little bit of work to get there. Though, thankfully, we should know where the stone is going to be. At least on this side. Should be somewhere around there. But, I guess what a lot of you are waiting for is this. We've got 9 gnomes that we need to name. Now, I'm going to quickly touch on this, actually, before we get to that. We've got the default professions, and I covered this towards the end of Spiderslaughter in the last couple of episodes, where there were quite a few changes to the way jobs were done. You've got a lot more control with the job type priorities. But I will be deleting all of these and making my own. Especially at the beginning, it's going to be very different for our gnomes. They're going to need to work in a different way than they will once there are lots of people and we can afford to specialize. But first and foremost, we need to rename the gnomes. Now, the way I'm going to be doing this is I've got a little short list. Well, I say short, it's actually fairly long, a lot longer than 9, of names for the founding gnomes. I asked on Twitter. I said that I'd be starting probably this weekend or next week. It turns out to be sooner rather than later. I'm hoping you're all happy with that. And asked people who were interested to give me their names for founding gnomes. And a lot more people replied to that than I was expecting. But we do have a reasonable list to pick from. Now, I'm usually against this sort of thing, because it ends up with me dying. And I never really know how to handle it when I die in a game, when my namesake dies in a game. But by popular demand, I'm going to name myself. This is mostly from people in the stream who kept nagging me to put myself in the game, and I kept resisting, but no, I guess I'll throw myself in here like I'm in Dwarf Fortress, and we'll see which of the Aavaks do better. So, there we go. First gnome to be named will be Aavak there, and I have to exit out in order to see which one it was. Okay, now we've got 2 female gnomes up here. Let's get you renamed. Flying staplers. Now this is where I'm going to be typing people's names wrong, because I've just got a little list that I threw together from all of the replies I got on Twitter, and well, mostly Steam actually, because a disproportionately large amount of you actually have my Steam. But flying staplers, if I do make a mistake, don't worry, just make fun of me in the comments and I will fix it in the next episode. We will also be having Dan with a female gnome named Dan. Oh, fair enough. But you will now be Metasapia. I'm really worried that I've misspelled that. And then we've got Aavak. Who have we got here? A male gnome. So this is going to be Bomarito. There we go. You are now a gnome. Well done. And another male. Fantastic. This will be Dapper McJester. Yes! He didn't die in Cataclysm. He just fell into a mine and woke up here. Or maybe it was more like a tree stump with a hole in it. Maybe he was following a white rabbit. We don't know. But Dapper Jester is now in Gnomoria. I actually asked Dapper Jester whether he wanted to be Dapper Jester or Dapper Muck Jester, and no, apparently Dapper Muck Jester is the way to go. It seems that Cataclysm has had a bit of an effect on him. Now then, who's this? This is another male. This will be Tamiz. Well done, Tamiz. Those people who are getting named right now, by the way, were picked randomly out of the list. I did a random number generator and generated 9 people from the list, so if you did ask and you're not here, sorry, but Chaotrocles was not smiling upon you at this time. But you will remain on the name list for the next migrants. I will be starting a new name list, and as with the other things, it's just going to be easier for me if people who want a gnome let me know in the comments of these videos. It doesn't matter particularly which video you leave comments in. I generally read all the comments that I get on every video, so just let me know when you decide, or should you decide to join in, and I shall see what I can do. We've got a new female, so this is going to be Alanra. And who's this? Another male. Edna. And that was Edna. So finally, got another female. This is Shelab. There we go. All of our gnomes are now named. Ah, that feels awesome. So, to recap, we've got Flying Staplers, Metasapia, Aavak, Bomarito, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Dapper McJester, Tamiza, Alanra, Edna, and Shelab. Welcome to Castlegoat. I bet you never thought you'd be welcomed to a place named Castlegoat. Okay, now, as I said, I'm going to be sorting out their professions. This is going to take me a little while to do. So, I am going to pause the recording for a moment, and when you return, I shall have it all done and I'll go over what I've set up. And welcome back. Okay, what I've got is 2 professions, a pioneer and a provisioner. Now, the pioneer mainly deals with laborious tasks, chopping down trees, digging, working the workshops, making things, that sort of thing. So we've got all stone, wood, metal, gem, and engineering tasks. Also all doctor and misc tasks. That includes construction and hauling. These two both professions have. Under misc craft, they will do pottery and prospecting, but not leatherworking or bone carving. In terms of the priority, they will do mining first, then agriculture. So mining comes first, then chopping down trees. Then they'll work in the workshop, and then they'll do some mechanics, like if I've got them set to build something like a a mechanism of some sort, like a trap. I doubt we're going to still be using the pioneer trade when we're doing that, but just on the off chance. Then they'll work in the hospital. Finally, after they've checked all of those and there's nothing to do, they'll build any constructions that they have to build. If there's no building tasks, they might tinker. That might actually happen with the pioneers. And finally, if there's no tinkering to be done, or rather nowhere to tinker, they'll do some hauling. Now, the provisioner basically does the opposite. They do cloth. Actually, did I turn that off? Yes, I did. Good. They do cloth, rancher, agriculture, again, doctor and misc. And in misc crafts, they'll do leatherworking and bone carving. Basically, they take care of the more organic tasks, like making food, tending to the animals, making clothes, just that sort of general thing. And of these, they will prioritize doing something I've told them to do. For example, if I've told them to forage something specifically, they'll do that first. Next, and the highest priority of their default task is pasture. Take care of the animals, make sure there's food for them, make sure you're milking them or whatever. Then tend to the farms. That's a very high priority. Finally, deal with trees. If I've made up some specific groves, deal with them last. So feed the animals, feed the people, deal with the trees. And the only reason why feed the animals is higher than feed the people is because that's typically a very quick job. So get that done, because farming can take some time, and in that time an animal might starve or go wandering. Generally the animals will wander off to get their own food if they can't find it, and that in and of itself can cause some problems. Once they've done stuff with the grove, they'll do workshop stuff, so butchering food, cooking food. As long as they've done the farming and the grove, then there will be food to be had, like apples, oranges, that sort of thing. But the workshops is where they'll actually make bread out of the grain and things like that. And then finally, they'll build or they'll haul. There's not really much else for them to do. Actually, I'll move up hospital. That should be above build. But that's the set of the professions, and that's probably what we're going to have for a while. Now, Flying Stapers, you can be a provisioner. Medisapia, you can be a pioneer. I will also join you in pioneering. Bomarito, you can be a pioneer. Dapper Jester, you can be a provisioner. Tamiz, you can be a provisioner as well. Alanra, you can be a provisioner. Edna, pioneer. And Shilab, a pioneer. So we've got 5 pioneers, 4 provisioners. That should be more or less alright for us, I hope. If we have a look here, it shows us a quick overview of what jobs will be done. There should be none that have 0. Just double checking. There we go. Yeah, that's fine. So most of the important jobs are taken care of, and we'll have lots of redundant people. So if some people are sleeping, there'll be someone else who's up and about. There should be no one under deceased. That's good. Right then, to start the actual fort. Oh man, it's been a while now. I've played a few test kingdoms, like I mentioned on my Twitch channel, just to kind of cover anything new. And there are quite a few new things, new workshops, such as the what's it called now? Let me see. I think it's under miscellaneous. The Prospector workshop. I didn't even have a clue how that would work, but it's quite interesting. But I'll cover that when we actually build one. Now, let's have a proper look at this land. We're probably going to have a much easier time. Well, we could probably push this back a little bit, but not too far. Probably only about 4 tiles. But on this side, we can probably push this back about 5 or 6, maybe 7, maybe a little bit more. So we'll push this back a little bit further, which kind of works in our favor because we kind of want this to be more of a cliff than anything else. And the water being here, it would be good if we could push this back enough that we could get easy access to it. Now, one thing I have tested is how feasible it is to not wall yourself off. I know a lot of people felt that that was kind of cheating, and I kind of agree. Especially towards the end in Spiderslaughter. Well, not so much towards the end, but in the middle I was just a massive turtle, really. Or a porcupine, you could put it, because I had people with archers out on the battlements. But no, we're going to be trying to do without that. I may do it here and there, I'm not really sure. I mean, I'm not going to specifically watch the fort fall for want of closing a door or something, but I'm going to be trying to do this without having any walling off going on. Now, we want to fell some trees. That's going to be the first step in this. We want quite a few of these trees. Pretty much all of these trees gone. But maybe I shouldn't do such a massive workload all at once. Let's get those trees gone. Trees up here gone. Let's get rid of them up to about here. And drive the trees back on this cliff face. That should be good. And there's an awful lot of work for them to do there, so get cracking. And of course, as soon as you unpause, it'll automatically save. Which is good, because having done all the work at setting up the professions, would be kind of suckful to suddenly lose that. Now, whilst you're doing that, I wouldn't mind it if you got out there and foraged up some of these cotton plants. Not particularly because I want the cotton, but we are going to need this out of the way quickly. Now, for the time being, until we've got some room, we're going to be leaving all of our provisions in this pile over here. And our yak is going to be free to roam, and that is a bad thing. We really want to get an area that we can have these guys working in quickly. Now, whilst the axemen are lumbering, we can have our miners doing some other work, because we've only got 2 axes when you set out. So we're going to have you ramp down this area. Let's just take all of that down if we can. And the same here. Just get all of that down quickly. There we go. Just so that people are busy doing things. Now, people are set to haul. There's just not going to be much for them to do just yet. So let's zoom out and double speed it. Get this over with a little bit faster. Now, I'm going to be trying to dig up as much clay as I can, much like I did in Spiderslaughter. I'm going to try and replace the clay with just dirt. And then we can use the clay for other things, because you can bake it in a kiln into bricks or into statuettes for trading. Now, when you guys are done over there, you can come over here and forage up these there. I'll just get out of the way of our miners. And go ahead and just forage this whole area if you would. Now, you've got to be kind of careful when you're foraging. Because if you happened, like if I designated these trees to be cut and then I gave a forage order, the forage order would overwrite the lumber order, so the lumberjacking order. But with pine trees and birch trees, they don't actually bear fruit, so there's nothing to forage. I could cut clippings, but we're going to end up with plenty of clippings anyway. Now, you are actually doing some good work here. We've got a couple of things left to forage, but our provisioners should actually get to that quite quickly. Now, is there any indication of how many people are idle? No, there isn't. That's a shame. That would actually be useful. We've got 3 in here, but we have to go into a menu to see it. If we have a look here, we can see who are idle are 3 pioneers. Because currently we've got chopping trees and nothing much else. However, now that we should have some dirt, we can have them replace these floors. So we've got 59 dirt clumps. Wow, that's actually quite a lot, considering you've only just started. Replace those, please. I'm not sure if that's a building order or a mining order. It looks like it's a building order, because all 3 of them are working, even though only 2 of them have got picks. But that's not too bad. We'll actually do that elsewhere as well. But once this is done, I'm going to set up a quick stockpile and also a pasture somewhere up here. Hopefully then we can get things on the move. Now, before I do that, we are going to need stone. Quite badly, in fact. Is there an easy way up there? Can you get up there? I think you can, actually. I think there is a path all the way up. If you can get up here, you should be able to just keep going up, I think. You might hit some problems there, unless you can get across here. Well, it's possible. So we're going to go ahead and set you out to dig a ramp down. Now, this should generate some stone just by digging a ramp, because you're effectively digging into the floor below. And yes, because that's gone green, that's showing that they can path their way up there. So off they go. Right, well, we'll just grab basalt for now. Now, you need stone to start off with. Those who were with me in Spiderslaughter from the very beginning have seen the game go through several changes, and one of them is that it's much harder to start out now than it used to be. We are going to have to build a crude workbench. Now, you can either go through the right-click menu like that, which I often do, but sometimes it's a little bit better to go through the icons at the bottom. So I'll just show both ways. Now, we're going to need 1 log and 1 raw stone. We've got that. We've got basalt. So we're going to just build this. We'll build it over here so it's a little bit further out of the way. One of the things I really like about Gnomoria is the graphical fidelity. If you make an object, for example, most of the later workshops require a chair, a table of some sort, and a tool. As you can see there, this one only required really a slab, and there's like a tree stump, but you can't quite see it under the wood there. Now that block of stone there is dark because it was made out of basalt. And likewise, if you like make a birch chair, which is like a lighter coloured wood, and use a stone table, let's say a marble table, which is a very bright coloured piece of stone, it will actually make the workshop will have a bright coloured wood chair and a bright coloured stone table, and it's actually quite cool because you can really be quite specific with the sort of aesthetics of your fort by detailing that sort of stuff. We're gonna get rid of this. We're gonna dig down a ramp here. Get that out of the way. Now, we've got enough room to build, to designate a stockpile. So that's going to be the first thing we do. And we're going to make it about here. Doesn't need to be a big stockpile. But this is going to take everything. The only thing it's not going to take is dirt. There's going to be so much dirt around, we don't want to pick that up. But we do want clay, so we'll allow that to be gathered. And for the... no, actually, we're going to turn off all soil and all raw stone. Now, currently there's only basalt, but there are other raw stone types of stone on the map, and eventually this list will populate as we find them. Now, we've already seen some different types of raw stone up on top of the mountain, but we haven't really dug into that. But we'll set that up, and I'll make another little stockpile for the stone and the dirt. But first, we want to build some storage. So if we go down here in the build screen, we want crates. There are 3 crates, so we want all 3 of those crates brought over here. Now, this is one problem. As you can see there, I had to click each one individually. If you go through the build menu with the right click, you can just drag them. So 2 barrels. I want 2. There we go. And I mean, it's not as obvious when there's only 2 things, but trust me, I'm just click, drag, click again. There we go. So that should move all of our goods, because they'll just pick up the barrel and everything that's inside it and just move it over here and plant it down. But we do want a little area for stone and wood. Stone and dirt and clay and that sort of thing. We'll build it there. And this one will just have soils and also raw stone. Now, the nice thing with raw stones and soils is they'll stack. So it's not 1 item per tile, it's 64 items per tile. So this will be dirt and stone. And we're going to make this a fairly low priority. So they're only going to haul here if they've got nothing better to do, basically. But this one, which is going to be supplies, just for now, it'll just be a very large stockpile. That one's going to have... yeah, we'll make it a tier 2. There we go. So they should run off and do that now. If we start that up, as we can see, that's turned green, so they're already going off of that. The next thing we want is a pasture. Now, this is quite important. We're going to have to make this big because the yaks are enormous now. Unfortunately, you can only make it somewhere where there's grass, because I don't even know why, because they don't actually eat the grass. But if you select the animal, each animal has a different size. This one each animal requires 12 tiles, so we can only fit a maximum of 5. We don't want 5 males. As with Spiderslaughter, 1 male can impregnate multiple females. So ideally, you want the females and 1 male, because the female yaks produce milk, the males don't. So you just want 1 for breeding purposes, and all the rest to be females. All additional male yaks can then just be butchered later on. Now, food, any straw. We want them to have it, but we need a trough before we can do that. So it's going to be very important that we actually get this to produce what we need to make another workshop. So the first workshop we want to make is the, where are you? Stonemason. Stonemason is going to require a bench, a chair, and a chisel. So if we go in here, now you can just build this like building, and I could place it down here, and it would automatically generate the jobs to make the things it needs in any relevant workshops that can make them. I prefer to be a bit more specific because then I've got control over what types of things it uses to make these things. The chisel, for example, any raw stone, that's fine. Just use basalt. That's all we've got, really. We only need one of those. The workbench is going to require 6 planks, so make... And the chair actually is going to require 4. So go ahead and make... make birch planks. Make 4 of those. And then make a chair out of whatever planks you've got. It will be birch planks. Had we had any planks in stock, then I could have selected what types of planks to use. And then we want 6 planks there. So we'll make these out of pine, though, so there'll be a bit of a graphical difference. And then make the workbench. And once all that's done, we'll actually build our first proper workshop. This is really the most... It's very crude, and everything you do in it is going to take a lot of time, unfortunately. But, speaking of time, I fear we have run out. So, with our gnomes already busy shaping the land to fit their needs, we must wrap the episode up there. In this episode, we've managed to embark, to create the world itself and find a place to call our home. We've even worked out what to call our home, though some people may be a little bit concerned about Castlegoat, but I think we'll grow used to it. We might even grow fond of it, who knows? And perhaps more importantly, we found out the names of our founding gnomes. I think they're going to do well, not least because they've got Aavak among them, a fortress administrator of some renown. But beyond these important but less practical, though I suppose having a name is quite a practical thing, our gnomes have actually started to shape the land to fit their needs. They've actually got a stockpile, we've got a pasture, so our yaks are actually pastured. Not fed yet, that needs to be done very soon, and to facilitate that, also a field. We need to start that very, very early. But they've made a very good start, in my opinion. And a start they will probably be continuing to make for at least another episode. But that is it from myself and from all the gnomes who now make Castlegoat their home. I hope you've enjoyed this episode and I hope you'll join us for the next. But until then, do take care.